The Agricultural Retailers Association exists mostly for its members, but we would not function without our professional staff team. Whether it's advocacy in Washington, keeping our members and key constituents informed, recruiting and retaining members, providing member services, or doing the business that keeps our business in business, they have our backs every day. We are privileged to have our next presenter at the helm of that great team. He has served ARA and its members for 15 years. And it has been my pleasure this last year to get to work beside him to serve our board and its members. Please help me welcome ARA President and CEO Daren Coppock to the stage as he presents his annual report to the members.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thanks to all of you. Good afternoon. Welcome to Houston. We're very pleased to have all of you with us. I'm glad you all read your programs and got to the 3:15 session this afternoon. I was worried I might be singing to an empty house, and so I'm really glad to see people here, and I hope you're off to a good start with your conference so far. So, as we look at where we've been in 2024 and where we're likely to spend some time in 2025, I thought it would be useful to look back at the mission statement that our board of directors established the last time we updated our strategic plan. And so if you look at this, you'll notice that our function is multi-functioned. We unite the interests of members, and we were talking about this at lunch today with our guests from Africa, about how we have members that are serving different kinds of growers, different kinds of growing systems, different sizes, different types of businesses, private co-op, publicly traded, etc., all into one agenda that makes sense and represents the shared interest of the entire industry. And that's really where the strength of an association like ARA lies. So we do that to advocate and educate. We provide services, and I'll talk a little bit about what we've done with those and where we're headed in a few minutes. And we basically try to preserve your freedom to operate, to keep the tools in the toolbox that you need to serve your customers, and to ultimately achieve that last line in the mission statement, which is the most recent thing that we've added. And that is the why we're doing this and who we're doing it for. It's so that we can all have access to a plentiful and safe supply of food. We didn't have that in the statement before. It was all about what we do, preserving freedom to operate, and so forth. Now we have a statement in there that says, and the ultimate reason we're doing this is so we can feed people, which I think adds another dimension of depth to that mission statement. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. So in service of that goal, looking back on where we've been this past year, there have been several areas where ARA is engaged to accomplish that mission. One is glyphosate litigation. We were involved in the lawsuit that stopped California from requiring non-scientific based statements on the glyphosate label. A significant win. We keep fighting these things all the time, but if we can keep states like California from putting things on the label that are not scientifically justified and that scare people and impede the use of a safe product, then we need to do that, and we did. We've been involved most recently, a decision that just came out not too long ago about treated seeds. If you're not familiar with the treated article exemption, what that provides is that we have a chemical that is used for a seed treatment will go through the FIFA registration process. It'll get its full label for use, and so it's okay to use. And then you put it on the seed, and those current provisions say that that's a treated article. It's exempt from additional regulation because you've already registered the product that you put on the seed. Some of the opponents to these technologies wanted us to have to go through the Section 3 registration process all over again, even if it's the same product that's already registered. Just because we put it on a seed, then we have to go through the registration process all over again. No scientific justification, no return to the customer or to the public, just added cost and added hassle from people who don't like this technology. EPA has reaffirmed the treated article exemption. Within the last 3 weeks, I think the decision came out. So yet another win. It's not the first time we fought this battle. It's probably not the last time we'll fight this battle, but it just shows how important it is to stay on top of these and remain engaged, as Tim was talking about a few minutes ago. We worked to get third-party service provider language into the Farm Bill. What that would provide is that someone who has earned a certified crop advisor certification could automatically be considered as qualified as a third-party service provider under NRCS programs. Until that happened, there were other hoops that people had to jump through, even if they had a CCA, in order to be able to write conservation plans and provide services under NRCS. So that provision is in the House Farm Bill that passed the House Committee. But as we all know, the House bill is wrapped around the axle, and even worse in the Senate. So I don't expect us to see a Farm Bill in 2024. However, an MOU between the American Society of Agronomy and the Natural Resources Conservation Service basically established this provision anyway, outside of the law. So we didn't accomplish it the way we intended to accomplish it, but we accomplished it. And it's always nice to be able to check off a win. That doesn't happen that often in Washington. Early on in the year, when EPA canceled the dicamba registration, we intervened almost instantly to try to maintain the existing stocks provisions that have protected us in prior years. You may remember when chlorpyrifos lost its label, there were no existing stocks provisions. Whatever was in the chain got stopped, and if you were stuck with it, you were stuck with it. And so we immediately went to EPA and said, look, you've got to let the things that are in the channel go. If it's already left the manufacturer, it's in retail, it's in distribution, it's at the farm gate, we've got to be able to use this stuff in accordance with the current label, or you're going to create chaos and economic harm. And within days, EPA announced their cancellation procedure for dicamba. And not only did they include the existing stocks provisions that we asked for, they referenced our letter multiple times in their regulation. You don't see very many more examples of that, of an effective, something that you've done that really has an impact. And I was extremely pleased to see that happen. More recently, we've been working with EPA on their Endangered Species Act compliance. So this is something that we have to do. It's not something that we have an option to not do. Because the registrations that EPA has done for pesticides for 40 years have not complied with the Endangered Species Act because they have not consulted with the National Marine Fisheries Services or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on impacts to endangered species. And as a result, we've lost some products because of lawsuits. And the whole portfolio is vulnerable unless we get this done. So we have been talking with EPA, and a lot of other people have too, to try to make sure that whatever system they come up with is something we can live with. And so the herbicide strategy is out. It's finalized. I believe the insecticide strategy is in draft form. We're looking for one on rodenticides coming up. And the way that they're defining how many points you have to score in order to be able to use a product with minimal buffers and full rates. All of that has been impacted by the advice and suggestion of lobbying groups like us. Most recently, they started to incorporate use of NRCS conservation plans as ways to earn points for mitigation. So if a farmer is enrolled in a plan that has approved practices from NRCS in it, that will count toward their ability to use a product at full rate with minimal buffers under this new system. So those strategies don't in and of themselves add requirements. What they do is they set up the framework so that when EPA takes a product through either new product registration or re-registration, it informs how they put together ESA mitigations. And we've started to see that on some labels that have come out already. So more to come on that, but it's important to stay engaged with the agency on that topic. One that is long-term impact that we haven't seen anything directly from yet, but we will, is the Loper-Bright court decision, which tore down the Chevron deference doctrine. Chevron deference meant that if a statute was ambiguous about whether the authority existed to do something that an agency wanted to do, if the agency went ahead and did it in their regulation and somebody filed suit and went to court over it, the court was required to show deference to the agency's interpretation of its own statute. And so some agencies use that as a way to expand the authority that wasn't written in the law, but still ended up in regulations that applied to us and to others. So the court decision to take down Chevron deference means that the agency can no longer go beyond what the statute says. And that if they do, anyone who wants to challenge those in court has much firmer ground to stand on to challenge those excessive rules. And so now that that's in place, I think you'll see business start to take specific rules to court and try to push back on some of those that we just haven't had a platform to stand on before in order to be able to do that. You may know that we operate a DC help desk for members. If you have questions about regulatory issues, you can call our policy team and ask them, what's the threshold storage quantity for this product as far as reporting it to DHS. We had a couple of them this year on paraquat regulations, or somebody was looking for resources on bad debt collection. And any number of things that impact your business. We had 10 of those cases this past year that we've handled for members, and it's part of your membership. It's not an extra charge. In the area of services, we launched a new entry-level driver training service back in January. Now that those requirements are in place for your new drivers, this is an economical way to get that service, get that training for those people, and still take advantage of the expertise that you have within your own operation to do the in-cab training. So you don't have to send them anywhere to do that. You can get this done through this program. And it's available now. The information's on our website, but you can contact any member of the staff and we can point you in the right direction. We continue to grow our smart payments service. That's one that was initially started for people that were wanting to accept credit cards, but didn't want to pay exorbitant merchant fees in order to be able to do that. And so where it started was reducing that merchant fee level, but the other half of it is that it also digitizes the payment process. And so it removes a lot of the error and a lot of the data entry and duplication. And so the people that are in that program are saving as much money from that streamlining as they are from the reduction in the merchant fees. But it's been a good program for us. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the information services that we provide. It may seem like an automatic thing that we have a social media post, we have a website update, we have a newsletter every 2 weeks that shows up in your inbox, but that stuff just doesn't happen automatically. It takes a lot of staff effort to make that work, and we do it because we think it provides value to you. You won't see things from us that you're likely to get from other people. We're not going to send out a press release that said President-elect Trump nominated Brooke Rollins to be Ag Secretary, because you've probably already seen that somewhere else. But if there's something that we can provide to you that has a unique ARA perspective on it, if it's something where ARA has been active, and we can help you understand or help you comply, that's the sweet spot where we try to hit with our publications and our newsletter. And we're always interested in making all of those things better, so we're interested in your suggestions and feedback on those at any time. So that's a quick look back at 2024. Let's look ahead at where I think we'll be spending some of our time in the coming year. Priority one has to be finish the Farm Bill. Some of the most effective lobbying I've seen on this topic has been with farmers and their bankers together going up to Capitol Hill, and the farmers can talk about their situation and how tough it is. But when the banker says, I can't offer this farmer financing until I know what the Farm Bill looks like, that's another level of concern and a level of impact for that member of Congress. Now, obviously, we don't have it done yet, but I'm hoping that we can get it done in early 2025 so that we can remove that uncertainty from the market. Those of you that offer trade credit to your customers are also dependent on having some kind of a foundation underneath those farms as well. So it's important. Tim mentioned tax policy. Tax-mageddon, I hadn't heard that one yet, but we have a tradition in Washington to add mageddon on the end of anything that's bad. Snowmageddon was a big snowstorm that we had back in the last decade. But not only is it the farm and business tax provisions, the Section 199A pass-throughs and the other things that were in that act, but there's also some talk going around in Washington about pay-fors. So how do we raise money to pay for these tax cuts? And one of the provisions that they're talking about would make trade association income, dues revenue, conference registrations, sponsorships, taxable. That would be devastating to this organization. And so there are a whole bunch of nonprofits like us that are joined together to try to stop that and make sure that it doesn't ever get out of whatever room it's in at the moment, because it would be tremendously bad policy for us. So lots of dimensions to tax policy, but it's going to be a humongous year for tax in 2025. You can't open a paper without looking about tariff announcements that the president-elect is talking about. And I know that he's upset with China, upset with others, because he believes that they're taking advantage of us in the ways that they subsidize their businesses. And in a lot of cases, he has a point. Here's why I'm concerned about that, though. Decades of economic education and training, and I'm an economist by training, tell you that trade makes everybody better. It allows people to comparatively specialize in the areas where their advantage lies, and that they can help each other out. And so in our history, whenever we have opposed a tariff on another country for one of their products coming into our country, it doesn't matter who it is or what sector of the economy it's in, the first place that country retaliates against us is ag exports. And they do that because they know that the ag community is hurt significantly by that, and that we will scream loud about it. So there's a reason why they do it that way. But the last time we had a tariff trade war, we lost our #1 soybean export market position, not only to China, but in the entire world. And Brazil is now ahead of us in at least soybean exports, and I think they're past us in corn. If not, they're really close. And I was at their, in fact, Amy and Harlan were with me in August at our Brazilian sister organizations conference, and they were very proud of the fact that they're now the biggest soybean exporter in the world. They will not give that up. And from my time in the wheat industry, I remember that these reputations for being reliable suppliers take decades to build, and they take minutes to destroy. So I am really concerned about where trade and tariff policy might lead us, and we have to be active and talking to the people in the administration so that they understand what the likely impact is going to be. And it's not just ag exports either, it's also imports of inputs. Over 80% of the potash we use in this country comes from Canada. We import a lot of technical ingredients for pesticides as well from China. So these can have impacts for us on both the input and the output side that we have to communicate. Already talked about ESA. That's not a done battle. We're going to continue working on that in 2025, and I'm sure even beyond then, because it's a very complicated, complex situation. Now, some things that I think will happen in the industry that we and our members need to be prepared for. As these pesticide regulations get stricter, and as the Endangered Species Act requirements start to apply to those labels, I think there's a good chance that there will be farmers who say, you know what, I'd rather have a professional applicator put this on for me than do this myself. Now, as some of our members are in custom application, some of them are really well positioned to do that. Others are not in custom application or wish they were not in custom application because it's darn hard to make money in custom application. But what I'm saying is that as these requirements get harder, and the farmer may not want to bear the liability of having a mistake or missing one of the checks in the box along the way, I think there's going to be an opportunity for custom application. And the most important thing that you can remember in this whole ESA pesticide application arena is that there's a 6-month safe harbor window. So what that means is that if you know you're going to be making applications of a product in May, as long as you've gone to EPA's Bulletin Live 2 website no more than 6 months in advance of that application and checked it, and it's okay to make that application in the area where you want to do it, on the crop you want to do it, then you're okay to do it, even if their Endangered Species Act regulations change between the time you checked and the time you make the application. That make sense? So my suggestion to everybody is when you know you're going to make applications of products, get somebody on the website for EPA no more than 6 months in advance, download those notifications so that you can document, yes, I checked it. So if there's ever an issue, you've got proof behind you. But that 6-month window, I think, is going to give us at least some measure of safe harbor. We'd like to see it longer than 6 months, but that's what we have at the moment. Artificial intelligence is going to continue to be an impact in this industry. That's why we've got 3 different sessions at this conference on AI. There was an IT session earlier this afternoon, We'll have two speakers tomorrow, actually a speaker and a panel tomorrow on artificial intelligence, and I see that becoming a bigger and bigger piece of the industry, not only as a tool to kind of augment what all of us are doing, but as a way to address this labor shortage that we continue to have in the business. AI and automation are going to be part of that answer. Interest rate environment is not something we can do a whole lot about at ARA. We don't have control over that interest rate switch in Washington, but it is something that, you know, we're not in the era of free money like we were for so long. And so it's going to affect not only your cost of capital, but also the credit worthiness of your customers. And so something that you might not have watched 5 years ago is going to be more important now. I think we'll see environmental litigation on steroids. The last Trump administration was a great example of that, where the EPA tried to kind of rationalize and right-size some of the pesticide regulations that had gone too far, and the NGOs sued over everything. That's going to happen again. So we just need to be prepared for it and to work with it. There are a couple of new services that we're working on that we're very early days on, but hopefully you'll hear something from us in the next couple of months. One is around ammonia training. The state of Illinois requires extensive training on ammonia handling for growers. And so as a result, Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association has developed a program that they have used to train growers and ammonia handlers within the industry. And so we're visiting with IFCA about the chance of, can we take that program from Illinois and make it a resource that's available to everybody? So your new employees, maybe even your customers, would have access to some ammonia training. So stay tuned on that. And then the other one that we've looked at is we continually hear about labor, and specifically those that have tried to use the H-2A seasonal labor program, how difficult, costly, and expensive the paperwork is for that. To the extent that a lot of people have said, I'm done. I'm not using that program anymore. So we are in the process of finding a partner that can help take that administrative burden out of H-2A, or at least minimize it. And so we did some initial market research in the last quarter with a bunch of our ARA members to see if there was traction for that kind of a service. The response was very positive. And so I have a call with the potential partner next Monday to talk about next steps. And so ideally, if we can get this moving quickly enough, it would be available even for the spring season of this year. That's my hope. I can't promise that, but that's where we're trying to get to. So a few things for 2025. Specific to the new administration, we have some opportunities and some watch-outs, I think, in 2025. The opportunities are around deregulation and around economic growth, things that this administration is going to be very, very interested in pursuing. And so some of that's an all of the above energy policy. Some of it is right-sizing deregulation, maybe dealing with OSHA's heat rule and taking another look at that, or the walk-around rule that they passed. Lots of different opportunities for us to take another swipe at some of those things that have been recent. But I think we also have some watch-outs. And I mentioned tariffs. I won't go into that again. I think I made my point about that. But access to seasonal labor may become even more difficult than it is now if the administration follows through on what they're calling mass deportations. And so what is already a tight market for seasonal labor may become even more difficult. And again, this is an area where we just need to communicate, to share the impact of what might happen. Now, there is a wild card. We have no idea where this guy is going to land in the administration. Right now, RFK Jr. is slated for Health and Human Services, which I don't understand why a science denier is nominated for that kind of a position. But even if he's not confirmed, and there's a lot of doubt about whether he would get through a Senate confirmation process, he'll land somewhere in the White House as an advisor or a czar or something that doesn't require confirmation. And so I think he's one person that we need to just keep our eye on to see where he lands and what kind of mischief he might be up to when he gets there. Uncertainty around geopolitical developments, what's going to happen with China, Taiwan, in the Middle East, in Russia, Ukraine, all will have significant impacts on us, not just directly in the industry, but on the country as a whole, that will filter in and filter down to us. Tim just talked about the biofuels and climate issues. Those need to be resolved. Tons of questions in that area. And then the president-elect made some other campaign promises that were pretty far out there. And as I listened to some of them, you kind of think, well, he's just trying to appeal to a certain audience, or he's posturing, or whatever he's doing. I'm reminded of a comment that one of President Bill Clinton's staff members made. Partway through his first term, somebody asked him, well, is the president going to follow through on his campaign promise to do X, Y, Z, whatever it was? And the comment of the spokesman was really instructive. He said, the president has kept every campaign promise that he intended to keep. I'm hoping that's the same way with where we are with President Trump's campaign promises, that there will be a filter and we'll be able to focus on some things that are really valuable and really important. I've mentioned national debt on here. This is not a 2025 issue, really. It's a bigger than that. But I put it on here to say that we've got a problem that we've not fixed. And it's gotten to the point now that we are spending more as a nation on interest on the national debt than we are in defense, even with wars going around the world that we're involved in. We cannot keep doing this. And yet, whichever party's in charge, you get a Democratic president, Democratic Congress, they'll come up with all kinds of ways to spend more money, but not either offset it or raise the taxes to pay for that. But I'll be critical of the Republicans too, because the Republicans come in and they will say, we need to do tax cuts, but then they don't reduce spending to match up with the reduced income. And either way, the end result is the same, bigger deficits. Now, President Trump has proposed a Department of Government Efficiency that may make some recommendations about that. But having watched these things develop in Washington for 20 plus years, I can also tell you that without a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, it's not likely to happen. The lobbyists will descend, and it will be stopped or slowed or redone. So somehow or other, this nation's got to figure out this answer to this debt problem, or the markets will do it for us, and we will not like the answer. So this all happens with people, because of people. We've got great people in this industry. I want to recognize a couple of board leaders, but before I do that, I want to stop for just a moment and recognize a couple of others that we all know who left us this year. And that's Al McQuinn and Dee Willard. Now, there are probably others that should be on that list that I'm just not thinking of, but those two people had an incredibly important role to play in the founding of this organization and in their support over the years. And so we're going to miss them. They're giants in the industry. One other that we got to be involved in that is still with us, thank God. Purdue University just announced a endowed chair in honor of Dave Downey. And so we were able to participate in the ceremony that started that, set it up. And I don't think there's anybody that's done more from an academic perspective for this industry than Dr. Downey. So it was terrific to be able to be involved in that. It's fun to recognize people that way. But we've got 5 board members who are completing their service on the ARA board this year. And if they're in the room, I'll ask them to stand up. Brad with Valley Agronomics, Scott Hendricks with AMVAC, Brett McMullen, IRM, Lyndon Smith with HUMA, and Will Bentley with Georgia Agribusiness Council. If any of you are here, thank you for your board service. And 5 people coming in to take their places on the board. I'll ask you to stand up and then we can clap for the group when they're all up. Jamie Poole-Rittenberry with Poole Agribusiness, Paul Kepi with International Raw Materials, Mason Bennett with AMVAC, Terry Talbot with Colusa County Farm Supply, and Ron Sieber, Kansas Agribusiness Retailers Association. Welcome and thank you. So the other part of the people equation is our staff team. And I can't tell you how big of a pleasure it is to come to work with this group of pros every day. We have, for a national organization like us, we have a really lean staff complement, but we get a lot done and we punch above our weight, and it's because of the effort, dedication, and professionalism of this entire staff team. And it's my pleasure to introduce one of our own who has a 5-year anniversary with us this year. We try to observe those milestones as they come. And so our Director of Communications and Member Experience, Andrea Mowers, has been with us for 5 years. I'd like to invite her to come up. I have a little token for her, but invite her to make any comments that she wants to make. Andrea? That's the only microphone we got right there.
Hi, everyone. I did not have time to prepare any remarks today because I was busy running around. But I just want to say thank you all for showing up today. Thank you all for being a part of this organization, this event. Daren just talked about our lean but mighty team. All of the ARA members in the crowd, please know that you have a small team here, but we are not afraid of a challenge. I'm very excited to continue working for you all the rest of the week. And if you need anything, please reach out to the ARA staff. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Andrea. So in closing, whether we're playing offense or defense in 2025, and we're probably doing a little bit of both, one strong voice for ag retailers is going to continue to be important and vital in the coming year as we talk to the administration about all of these concerns that we're worried about. And so it's our honor and privilege to represent you. Thank you for your membership and your support, and we're looking forward to working with you in the coming year. Thank you.